Excellent.
Okay.
I would like to extend my appreciation to all of you for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us today. We've had some difficulties with the timing, but I think we're good, and I'm not sure if we're going to be changing the schedule on a regular basis or not, but we'll keep you informed. And I'd also like to extend my appreciation for BL, Rose, and Michael for their technical assistance, without which we would not be able to do these presentations. And I also appreciate you coming in, Walter. Perfect timing, because I I have Mercury in Leo, and it's been a God saver, because with all my water, if I didn't have a little fire in my mental body, I'd be drowning with all the water I have in my chart. So we're going to open the presentation with help from you and BL to give us some of your astrological insights into the esoteric and the exoteric influences of Leo. You can see from the symbol that I'm sort of showcasing for this presentation that we have rays 1, 2, and 5, and Leo has a direct link to Sirius, and it's a very powerful time of the year. And if you have any Leo, and I know BL has Leo, so I'm going to let her go first. If you're ready, BL, to just give us some insights, and then I'll let Walter jump in on the sign Leo and some of the aspects that are happening.
Okay. I actually pulled up a couple of slides, so I have some info because, me and on the spot is not that great. But being being a Leo personality, I can tap dance. I
You
can.
can tap dance.
So we know the sun is our personality, and my uh, personality is that Leo sun.
Excellent.
That can be in your face Leo, like someone like Donald Trump. It's not his sun sign, but it's his ascendant. And
Ooh.
that can be the me, 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 me. Did I say me? It can be like that. I have a brother like that who's also a Leo sun. But I like to think that I've toned that down. Part of it could be all the rest of me is an introvert, and the only thing that gets me out there in the public is that Leo sun. But I like to think that I've raised the um, lower characteristics of Leo into the higher, which is one of the things we need to do with our personality. We need to, just coordinating the personality, coordinating the lower vehicles into the personality is actually on the path. That's a accomplishment in itself. But then we have to learn to overcome the lower tendencies and raise the vibration of that Leo. And part of that is the esoteric ruler. The sun is the exoteric ruler, physical sun, the what we see. But the esoteric ruler is Jupiter, or the sun veiling Neptune. Okay, so those two things, one of them is that wide, uh, outgoing compassion and the beneficent ruler. And one of them is um, the inner compassion and the Christ-like within. So that's what we're reaching for with
Rose,
the soul.
you still here, Rose?
So those are the 2 points of um, Leo that I like to point out. Um, I'm working with the two of them. I have a lot of that personality to overcome, and I'm working through it. I've got this, I think I have the Ray 1 hidden. I don't have it on any of my vehicles, but I believe the Ray 2 of Leo is my soul ray, and the Ray 5 is my uh, mental ray. And I believe that my soul ray is focused through that Ray 5. So they work well together. At least I think they do. Although at this point in my life, I believe that my Ray 5 mental, concrete mind is driving the train, and I need to get the soul more um, in control. But that's just my own personal take on what's going on. But um, so there's a lot more I could actually say. Um, the sun itself is a non-sacred planet. Uh, at the lower levels of it, we think that everything orbits around us. That's our universe. Um, it's also, the vitality of the sun. Uh, we have to keep that in mind. So,
Yes, excellent, BL. Thank you so much. And I do think you are responding to your soul's vibration because with that Leo and how you share is very dynamic, but it's also very second ray. You have a lot of humility. And if you got Leo in your chart, that is not easy to do. Okay, excellent. And as I mentioned earlier, this has been my saving grace is having a Mercury in Leo with all my water because I would be by nature more shy and retiring. But when I get engaged mentally with the teachings, it just the Leo sort of takes over and hopefully it's not overbearing to the group members here. Anyway, Walter, we're very pleased to have you. I don't know if Jessica's of it here today. I can't see the roster.
yes, yes, she is here
Oh,
today.
well, thank you also for coming, Jessica. We really appreciate your presence. So, Walter, please give us some more insights into Leo.
Yes, absolutely. And a few notes about Leo. And here's actually some keywords that BL has given in the past. And so I can just reiterate them. And that the sun, we know the general exoteric part of the sun, but more esoterically, the sun is about like the path of the personality. It can represent the personality, but really the path the personality takes toward growth. And it also has creative gifts and the key to integrating the personality and the soul. And a more lesson of Leo, an esoteric lesson of Leo, is to unite the mind and heart in the will to illumine and in developing the ability to consciously express spiritual will along with purpose and intent. That's the Ray 1 and Ray 5 part of Leo. And then we have the mantrams of Leo, like the mundane personality-based mantram of Leo is let other forms exist, I rule. That's kind of the more egocentric stereotype of Leo. And then there's the esoteric mantram of Leo, which is depicted here on the slide, which is I am that and that am I. And then we also have like the special light of Leo, where Leo is the light of the soul. Um, and then there's also, this is another thing that BL is an expert on. Then there's the labor of Hercules, the Leo labor of Hercules of slaying the Nemean lion. And that there was the challenge where Hercules was trying to slay the lion, but the lion went in a cave, and the cave had two entrances, and so it was hard to catch because you go in one way, the lion escapes from the other. So Hercules had to, use the fires of soul to light a fire, blocking one of the entrances, and that allowed the soul energies to vanquish the lion. And yeah, and of course the Leo's rulers for exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical are basically sun, 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 which is easy to remember. But with the esoteric and hierarchical, meaning that the non-sacred sun planet is really veiling. So you have sun veiling Neptune for esoteric and sun veiling hierarchical for the sun veiling Uranus for the hierarchical ruler of Leo. And so, yeah, those are all some energetic parts of Leo that is notable to remember when considering this important sign, and also important events that take place during Leo, like the Leo Sirius Festival, as they call it, for when the important star Sirius rises at the same time as the sun. And that's a important special thing that takes place in Leo, just like we have like Wesak and Easter and Christ Festival for the Aries, Taurus, Gemini signs.
Excellent, Walter. And anyone can see that you have some serious fifth ray in some of your vehicles. Where would you place it?
Yes, I think that I have a Ray 5 mind, and so that means Leo is special for me with Leo's Rays 1 and 5, and with seeing my Ray 5 mental vehicle, of course, Leo strongly affects that. And um, yeah, and of course, I have lots of things in Sagittarius, which is Ray 5, and the Ray 1 of Leo affects my Capricorn rising with there as well. So Leo is influential on both my mind and my rising.
Excellent. And you have a lot of second ray, and that's what makes your work, your presentations so magnetic. Very well articulated, but anyone can see and feel the tremendous second ray influence behind that fifth ray. Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Walter. And
Duane,
yes, yeah.
we got a couple of comments. First off,
Okay.
Jessica says that this was a one-time change due to the conflicts of the next two Saturdays. So this will not be a permanent fixture for the time. We're still working with the second Saturday of every month. However, there will continue to be conflicts, and when that happens, we have to schedule as appropriate. So thank you for bringing that up, Jessica. Um, Greg says, I see Leo too in my own chart in opposition to my midheaven and now my progressed sun into Leo. Yes, we all have every sign in our chart, and at various points, we're going to have um, progressions and transits in that area if we don't have it in our natal chart. So we all can relate to this um, in a variety of ways, like Greg has pointed out here. And then I want to thank Walter for bringing up the labors of Hercules, which of course is one of my favorite things. And so I put a link in the chat for everyone, I hope, that gives you where I did my webinars on the labors of Hercules. I have extended version for each sign, and then I have a condensed version too, because they're just so important. So anyway, that's available to you. And then Greg brought up a point. Um, you have here on your slide the keyword I am that and that I am. Well, it's also correct to say, and I believe Walter said this, I am that and that am I. And I actually believe that DK says it both ways in uh, in the books, maybe in different books. Uh, but yes, you do see it both ways. So, um, and there is a slight difference in that being articulated as I am that and that I am, or I am that and that am I. So,
Yes, thank you for that distinction. Okay, any additional comments or shares?
that's it for now.
It's interesting when Dr. Robert Girard, Michael Robbins, and myself started the first USR PhD program in San Diego, California in 1990 and 91. We had a student by the name of David Tressimer, who has recently passed over to the other side. But David was really big on embodying the rays. And there were presentations where he got us to act out some of these labors of Hercules. And sort of in a theatrical way, we also practice to represent the different 7 labors. And I remember, this has been some time ago, but I remember Keith Bailey, Michael, and myself, we became the 3-headed dog. Does anybody remember the actual name of that? It was,
Cerberus.
okay, thank you, excellent. And we had this black sheet with just enough so you could peek your eyes out. And Michael and I and Keith, we acted that labor out. And I'll tell you, I learned more about Keith Bailey and Michael Robbins under that shroud acting out. It was just off the charts. It was so profound to actually embody these different rays and these different labors. And I hope at some point that type of work in the Moya School and its affiliates can be reinvigorated, because DK talks extensively about using rhythmic motion to enter into altered states of these ray expressions. So I just thought I'd mention that sort of as a footnote for potential future work. And I have mentioned several times in passing that Rose and I have purchased 58 acres of land just north of Sacramento by a couple hours. And we're starting to build on it now. And it's going to be available for any of you to come and visit at no cost when it's a little further along and we have better services. But we hope to be able to have a community center where not only the rays can be acted out, and I know this has been done before, this is nothing new, but it's very powerful, as well as the labors of Hercules and other things. We want an observatory at the top of the community center because the upper part of the 58 acres is very high and there's no light pollution out there because it's pretty far away from any civilizations, right in the middle of the Tahoe forest. And we want to have an observatory at the very top where students and disciples like yourself can come and observe these magnificent suns and constellations without any pollution, any light pollution. And if any of you are familiar with the unpublished works of Duane Carpenter, where he talks about the triple sun meditations, and I'm going to have to reserve any extensive insight into what that is, other than say it's using your sun sign, your rising sign, and what DK calls your monadic point. And one of the things he says in his outline in these unpublished meditations is that the student should go out on a moonless night and stare out at the constellation that is their monadic point, because it's not your rising sign, it's something even much more advanced than that. And if we have some really, really good telescopes at the top of our observatory, people can come and we can do meditations, and it will be around at some point when people are ready, their monadic point. So I apologize for sort of going off on a separate subject, but I wanted everyone to know
Duane,
this. Yes, go ahead, Bill.
you have an expert here today in Walter on the triple suns.
Oh, excellent. Well then, Walter, if you would be kind enough, you could give us some additional insights into what I have found is profound.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed. And so, yes, there are these triple sun charts or ways of, or horoscopes that can be looked at, which indeed involve the sun, the ascendant, and the opposite sign, which is usually represented in a chart as the Earth or the monadic point. So it's basically personality, soul, and monad, and it's overlaying them. Or interposing them, superimposed, as the esoteric astrology refers to it. And so, yes, you can have the true horoscope, which involves the spiritual practices and meditations to properly use it. And then there's the more objective chart that can be erected that does that. And so, yes, you can actually create a triple sun chart, which might be insightful for that. And a way to do that, I'll put that in the chat here, and that shows a um, a little web page that shows how to, in the Astrolog astrology program, to generate a triple sun chart for yourself. And of course, it has links to things like, more articles that go into this in more detail, but yes, it does do a superimposition of like three charts overlaying to get a more dynamic or three-dimensional perspective on the sun and the kind of the different suns that are out there. And there's some, DK quotes, including some quotes from the unpublished zodiacal meditations, which is what can be mean by some of the work from DK that is not in the 24 esoteric books. So yes, thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's can be insightful.
This is excellent, Walter, and you know how supportive I have been with the many contributions that you're making on charts that have taken on like a 3D and motion attributes, because I think we're moving into a period. Well, let me regress slightly. One of the questions that's asked me, perhaps more than any other working in this esoteric field, is okay, we can expect some new teachings to arrive in 2025, but what are they going to look like? How are they going to be different? Are they going to follow the continuity of HPB, who started the Trans-Himalayan ball rolling, you might say, and then DK was more intermediate. But DK clearly states at the turn of this century that we are now in, there's going to be not just additional information, but there's going to be new and dynamic ways of presenting this material. So what I see, and the group can see with Walter's work, is that both of those are represented. He's presenting, he's making available what DK said he had to, and this is partially my interpretation, that this material was so advanced that it should be released later. And if I am correct, and you can help me here, Walter, he never really completed all 12 signs, but he completed enough of the signs for us to be able to apply certain aspects of what he shared to all the signs. And this is tremendously important, because the eye assimilates faster and more completely than text. And I'm not in any way inferring we don't need text and it's not going to be around for, it's going to disappear. No, it's going to. It's always the foundation. Text and all this preliminary lower mental information is absolutely critical, because when you get to the crossover point, and we've discussed this very extensively, and you have mastered the physical etheric body, relatively speaking, and you have calmed the emotions relative to your place on the path. The next challenge for the third degree initiate is to be able to use the mind in its lowest subplanes, and then through creating what DK calls the vortex or the vacuum, you're able to transit from the lowest subplanes of the mental into the higher, and then even into the intuition. And then, of course, later, the will of the Father. So these are important considerations. And this would be, in my opinion, one of the areas of esoteric astrology that is expanding, and it's going to be based on all the technicalities that has always been required for a good chart, but at the same time, it's going to include the intuitive awareness and of the actual person who's casting the chart, because we all know that you can have two charts that are identical, but the astrologer has to understand what initiation potentially are these people going through, because that not only shows their assets, but it shows where their potential liabilities, glamours, illusions may exist. And astrology is a means of overcoming those, because it's the blueprint of not just the personality, but the soul itself on its own plane. Anyway, thank you so much, Walter. I appreciate what you're doing. Okay, are there any comments that have come up?
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I'll read them here in a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walter.
Oh yeah, I was just in alignment with what Duane was saying and about the nature of the teaching now and how it is happening after 2025. There's the classical quote in Ray's Initiations that talks about how the teaching planned by the hierarchy to condition to the New Age falls into three categories, and it has the preparatory stage written down by H.P. Blavatsky, and then the intermediate stage written down by Alice Bailey. And then it talks about stage 3, which is revelatory, which is to be given on a worldwide scale via the radio. And I found that interesting because, first of all, it's not saying that a particular one individual is doing it. It suggests that it's more on a worldwide scale, it's more of the group inspiration coming forth. And also saying via the radio, that's their way of saying that it's more they would just see the like things like the internet, like the via the radio, and what we're doing now, and the way we're communicating things and creating it more visually, because it's not just revelatory, is kind of related to vision, and that can be the seeing the insights, and that can show some of the more, again, there's still important texts and things to read, but it's more multimedia now, and so we can have that more revelation. So that I was just saying that quote is in alignment with what Duane was saying, and about how it seems like that the teaching is being presented going forward. Thank you.
I'd like to I'd like to add to that, and then I'll
Please,
get to the comments that we have.
go
Um,
ahead.
the work that Justin Wilkinson is doing with his what is it, monadic media,
Yes,
that's just so wonderful. But I also want to point out, Duane, you made a point of highlighting the triple sun, and part of esoteric astrology is understanding the relationships that are so rampant in astrology. Leo to Sirius, any of the signs to the other constellations out there, and how they interact. Um, and also the sun and the moon and polar opposites. Nothing stands alone. It's an axis, the sun and moon axis. Each sign is an axis. And you have to understand the nature of each sign individually, and then the merging of those signs. That's just as important as understanding all of the things that Walter has been able to put into his astrolog program, whether it's the three-dimensional chart or whether it's the triple sun, um, whether it's
yes,
understanding and reading each and every one of the labors of Hercules from page I all the way to the end, because DK talks about the relationships in there. He talks about what the first four signs mean, what the next four signs mean, and what the final four signs mean. He talks about what the nature of the myth is, what the nature of the journey is, what the lessons learned are from each sign. So it's taking that and putting it all together in the variety of ways that Walter does it, that Duane does it, that Justin does it, and that everybody else, that Michael does it. Heidi with her wonderful astro dramas that she does.
yes.
There's just so many ways that you can see how all of this goes. Okay, I'm off my soapbox if you want me to read the rest of the comments now.
Yes, thank you, BL. Excellent comment.
Okay, Francis says, uh, speaking of Justin, Francis says the 58-acre property is very stimulating and naturally energetically potent. It is also very grounding. It's a unique experience with much natural beauty.
Excellent. Thank you, Francis. And, it's interesting. The upper part of the property is sort of an outcropping of quartz and serpentine rock, and it has a beautiful 300-degree Panavision view. It's just breathtaking. But then the lower part of the 58 acres goes right into the Yuba River. And so you can get a real sense of fire at the top and water at the bottom. Shiva, and Varuna. And it's very, very cleansing. And people, according to their unique makeup and their rays, might gravitate to spend time in one or other of those places. Thank you, Francis. And Justin Wilkinson, which of course is Francis' son, he has done a series on the electric, sort of the electric universe, and it is profound. It is so seventh ray. It has all the rays, and it is so visual. You cannot watch those videos without being totally blown away. And if everything works out correctly, I would love to see him at the next conference so that he could demonstrate to the group his incredible creativity and his deep understanding of the teachings. Okay, excellent. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes. Michael Stacy says Leo also holds the clue to the mysteries of the Sphinx and of the lion and the unicorn. Yes, there's so many um, stories that Leo can tell us, including those two.
Excellent. You know, it's interesting, Michael, that you bring up the lion and the unicorn, because if you look at this symbol that I have put up, the lion of the personality is consumed by the lion of God, and the third eye is pierced by the unicorn at the third initiation, where the Ajna center exhibiting rays 4 and 5 is fully revealed. A Manus in its higher aspect and in love, unconditional love pouring down from the Buddhic plane. And if you look carefully at the breath of the two lions, you'll notice that they're breathing violet fire. And that translucent lavender that they're exhaling is the subplane that parallels the monadic plane. And I've done this up in many of my charts in different ways. And the actual, the eye of Sirius has a relationship to the cosmic Buddhic plane on a very, very high level. And I think it's the sixth cosmic path. So that's the all-seeing eye of God radiating out through not Buddhic energy as we understand it, but cosmic Buddha. And that dot in the center is, of course, Fohat or cosmic electricity, which can be found in all of the outlying constellations, the 7 that DK talk about, expressing the will of God. Because once you get outside of our constellation, and I understand this may be getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but when you're entering into the third initiation, you are pulling energy not just from our planetary logos and from our sun, but from these outlying constellations that, even though they have their unique ray energies, as we all know, like the Great Bear is ray 1, the Pleiades are ray 3, and I'm just generalizing here for convenience, and Sirius is ray 2, 5, and 1. They all express cosmic will in some degree. Okay, excellent. Any additional comments?
Yes. Heidi says organically constellated forms that interpenetrate the openings that are being formulating through the spaces that are opening up.
Excellent.
She typed that a while ago, but that goes very well with what you just said.
The idea of interpenetration is why I'm so excited with what Walter's doing, because as a general rule, and this has been perhaps just my observation, but I have found that when people have a highly developed mental body along the fifth ray, they often have more difficulty with developing the fourth ray of unconditional love. Now, that does not apply to Walter at all, and it certainly doesn't apply to you, BL. So this is what
Yes,
this
it does.
yeah, this is the idea of interpenetration is so exciting. And what people don't understand about the fifth ray is that the fifth ray has 5 subrays. And yes, you have to have technical information. You have to build with the lower mind because it's a major organ of advancement and development. But when you reach the fifth ray in its higher subplanes, it's right there where the soul is. And soul energy pours down through the fifth ray. And it does depend on what ray your soul is on. But you said something very esoteric early, BL, I wanted to just reiterate, and that is that we all respond to all of the astrological signs to different degrees. And the art of astrology is to scientifically figure out what are the most dominant, what are the ones I can sort of rely on in this incarnation that come naturally, and which are the rays that are only embryonic and I have to develop. And this is the purpose of this type of group work that we're doing here. If you're exposed to something that you don't quite comprehend, that is not a fault. That indicates you're here, that you are pushing yourself or guiding yourself, perhaps is a better word, into additional ray influences that will round you out. So also that there's really only 6 astrological signs, Cancer, Capricorn, that you have to synthesize your polar opposite. You have to balance them. And that's not easy because in the early stages, that other ray can antagonize you. And to go back to our last meeting, it can cause overstimulation in the early stages until you have mastered that ray or at least become so confident and familiar with it, it no longer causes discomfort. Okay, excellent. Any additional comments?
Yes. Ishtar says, thank you for explaining that beautiful Leo image, Duane. Cosmic booty in the lavender energy could be related to Polaris Ray 1 and Doobie, Leo's rays. Oh, that's a question. Could the
Yes,
cosmic, yeah, yeah.
I am going to shuffle that to Walter or BL.
Walter,
Yeah,
take it.
isn't Doobie one of the stars in the Big Dipper in the Great Bear? And I think that's the one on the end, which would be the I believe the Ray 5 star, one of the pointer stars, the one closest to Polaris. And yeah, so that gives you Ray 5. And then there's Polaris, just with its important
I
position as
couldn't
a pole
find any
star.
paper.
I don't know if it's Ray, but I would certainly say Ray 1 would fit for it, given its synthesis and kind of like the axis of the wheel around which everything turns. And therefore, we have both Rays 1 and Ray 5, which is Leo. And so that seems to be a strong Leo influence. And also, they said that I understand there's the polar energy is distributed via Aquarius. That's somewhere in the blue books, and therefore there's the Leo Aquarius acting as one unified sign esoterically. So yes, I just think that's a good comment to be made. So thank you.
Excellent, Walter. Thank you so much. And
And I,
Rose is going to make a few adjustments on my computer. Go ahead, Theo.
uh, I was just going to say that, again, I am such a big fan of the labors of Hercules, but I'm also such a big fan of working with the polar opposites. So much so that Eva and I did a series of webinars on understanding the conflict between the two and then how you resolve that and understand the axis together as one whole. So I put that in the chat, the link to those webinars. And then Greg says, I think my progressed son has become a catalyst for awakening these first ray energies. And because of my fourth and 10th houses, the planet Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, and Pluto are all being more active in my whole life. I think that may be why I feel more connected now to having a clear, one-pointed focus mental body, perhaps even emphasizing the first rate energies involved. I think that's a
Excellent.
good way of looking at it.
The 7 stars of the Great Bear, which are the embodiment of the 7 aspects of will according to DK, they have Persian names. And I'm not sure where I got this information. When the disciple who is responding, even embryonically, to one or other of those 7 rays, because I think it's like ray 1 is ray 1, 1. Then there's 1, 2, 1, 3. So the Great Bear Ursa Major expresses all the 7 rays, but predominantly through the first ray. And that when, and this could easily be a part of the more advanced teachings that are coming, that when you create a mantra out of these Persian words, in other words, the names of these 7 stars are not chosen at random, that they have an esoteric link. And when you repeat that name and you're looking at the constellation and assuming you've done the preparatory work, because it could be very overstimulating in the early stages, this could be a part, just an additional part of the new astrological teachings that are coming. And this is true of all the other 6 constellations. They have common names and they have often esoteric, more Persian names. Okay, excellent. Any additional comments?
I don't see any at this time.
Okay. Now, if there are no additional comments, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open up the group to a conversation where I get, and the group gets some feedback on how I've been doing this roughly for 5 or 6 years through the Moya University. It's been a great privilege, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate comments and responses that have come in. But I want to sort of drill down a little deeper, and I want to ask the group what is working for them with this, and or how they think it could be improved so that it could be even more dynamic. And I do understand that it's not just my contribution. There are many others who contribute here, and I really appreciate their sharing, because that's what makes this so organic. It's more of a group thing rather than just a lecture. And perhaps I have additional growth I need to make, because sometimes I forget that, and that's not good, because the group contribution is so important. So I'm going to open it up now if anybody would like to share. Now, if there's any additional comments about material, we've already dealt with. That's fine. But at some point, I'd like to move into how can we make this better? What additional things should we add? And what's working? Because what's working, we want, of course, continue.
All right, while everybody's thinking on that, we do have a couple of more comments.
Okay.
Ishtar responded to what Greg said, and she says, Pluto, Saturn, Chiron. Ah, tough. And thank you, God, for the seemingly bad that is for my growth. Yes, that's a little mantra. Thanks, Ishtar, for saying that because nothing is bad. Everything has its ultimate purpose. So, seemingly bad that is for my growth, absolutely. And then she goes on to say, Ray, one will and destroyer can be one pointed phoenix rising from the ashes into the new. And then Greg says, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So,
Beautifully shared, Ishtar and Greg. Thank you.
and then Heidi says, the seven rays then will pour forth the next level for the whole of humanity according to the human being as a whole has developed.
Yes, it's all about the seven rays and our ability to receive their gifts and to translate it into types of service that is commensurable with where people are at. Another thing, another issue I'm working on.
Aren't we all? You said something earlier, Duane, and that was man, my mind just totally blanked. The seven rays and how we view them in our vehicles and how we gain in the experiences with them from their weaknesses to their strengths and everything in between. And we also talk about the seven rays and not just our vehicles, but legacy rays that we might have where we don't have it on any of our vehicles, but we feel the energy of that ray. Um, like for me, ray one is not in my vehicles, but I feel that energy. Well, I want to say that it can come through, obviously, the physical, it can come through the signs, like we know. But I also want to say the same thing about the signs. This life, we have specific signs that are important to us. But we've played around in our past lives with every sign before, and they were more important at different times than they are now. It's all about, as Duane was saying, the lessons that we needed to focus on this particular lifetime for the direction that we needed to move into. So even though you might be light, Greg, on Leo in your birth chart, you may still have that resonation with it that when it came through in transits and in progressions, you related better to it than someone who was totally clueless because it was the first time. And there's never going to be a first time that you've ever experienced a sign. This is not our first rodeo, people. So we just relate to them better depending on what our focus is.
Yes, beautifully shared, BL. And I've had a little difficulty with my slides, but I finally got up.
Okay, we got a hand.
Okay, Barbara.
Yes, I very much appreciate that you've focused these sessions on Buddhi Manas and really are training us how to be powerful in the Buddhimana's plane of intuition that is still grounded. So I think it's a preparation for uh, the Aquarian age, and perhaps the next 50 years of theosophical work. Um, so what I would like to see more of is sort of systematically what we're going toward in the Aquarian age. Um, what kind of intuition and imagination is called for, and how specifically to work with Ray 7, um, moving into the Aquarian age and into the fifth kingdom of nature. So thank you very much for these sessions, because they're in a territory that no one else seems to enter. So I appreciate your Mercury and Leo in making this happen.
Well, thank you. Excellent insight. The Tibetan has indicated that one of the characteristics of the new Aquarian groups forming is the interplay of energies between them through telepathy. And I can't tell you how many times I was, while working within groups, I was about to say something and somebody else, just 3 seconds before I was going to speak, shared the same idea almost exactly. And, Jung talked about his acausal synchronicity and how there are all these subterranean influences on the superconscious level and the subconscious level. And when we do group work, we enter into each other's stream of thought, stream of feeling, different aspects of love, and of course, the divine will. And anyone who's done work over a period of time can see how groups integrate, and they go through almost, you might say, a mental type of integration where they have sort of certain guiding principles and laws, not rigidly, but in a generic way. And then the heart, through first the emotions where an individual feels safe. Is this a group where I'm going to go, and if I say something that's not 100% accurate, somebody's going to attack me? And I have been in groups that were like that. And it was unfortunate because when you can bring that loving vibration in, and everyone has the same equal voice in many ways, even if they choose not to share it, they're thinking it. This is so important. And this type of intimacy actually intimidates some people. And telepathy is so powerful because it can reduce a long series of words, theories, principles, laws into one moment of revelation. And yes, we always want to have the lower mind as the interpreting agent and the grounding agent, because it's the vehicle for all of its limitations that allows us to translate revelation into true service, not just maybe what we want to do, but what the needs are around us at any given time. So thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. And that's very important. Okay, Jessica, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Am I coming in?
You are.
Okay. My feedback, Duane, and to the group, I came here because I support your work very, very much, Duane, ever since I first attended the first conference. And I appreciate the uniqueness of your faculties and your visual and vibrational work in bringing a aspect of these teachings alive in a very active and activating way. And your awakening the higher mind through intuition is very much supported by all of your presentations that I've attended. And I think that you also embody Ray 2 and Ray 5 through your work. I feel a lot of love from this group, from you. Um, I appreciate the visual, vibrational, and intuitional sharing and growth together within this group. And I think it synthesizes all of this wonderful material in a really important way. And I think having you in the Moria Federation um, group and as a faculty member, there's just no words. So what I would like to see more of is doing this for more time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jessica. That's so sweet. Excellent. The Tibetan has said that language, whether spoken verbally or written, veils a series of symbols that are very potent, but they can't be fully understood until the lower mind is developed to a point where it can be a real grounding agent. But symbols are incredibly important as we go into this age of Aquarius. And according to HPB and DK, there's many levels. And in fact, every person looking at a symbol can get a different interpretation. However, both DK and HP Blavatsky said there's 7 main categories. And as you unfold one, you realize that symbol actually veils another symbol that's even more potent. And as you go up a so-called Jacob's ladder through working with symbols, you suddenly realize you're dealing with just pure energy. And it's been my understanding that the first subplane of all the rays is almost like a river of fire, of a unique color, unique sound, unique vibration. And when that first sub-ray descends into the lesser subrays like 2, 3, 4, and 5, they begin to crystallize. Now, they can still be organic, they can be moving, and they can be transparent. So you can look through them and behold multiple things happening in, around, and with one of those subrays. But this is where you pick up in your divine geometry. And every person is born with a certain type of geometric structure built into their etheric and astral and mental bodies. And that is a representative of where they are on the path. And DK says the masters know how to guide you by looking into your auric field and seeing the quality of light, its color, its note, its vibrational quality, and also the geometry, where we all relate to some type of geometric forms. And I use the word forms because it's plural, because it's not just one. So looking at this chart that you can see that has Sirius, Leo, and Jupiter is a demonstration of how a triangle, when energy is circulating powerfully and at the right speed, what happens is that triangle becomes a vortex. And that is one of the most difficult things to understand when you read the Tibetan's works. He's talking about triangles, triangles, triangles. And then later he talks about uh, the divine trumpet, and he talks about channels, and he talks about vacuums and vortices. And sometimes it's hard to link those two together. But when you get energy circulating between Sirius, Leo, and Jupiter, and there are multiple triangles, this is just one of them, you're opening up a funnel of communication. And this is where you go from the lower aspect of the fifth ray into the higher aspect of the fifth ray. When something that's stationary that you're observing suddenly dissipates and you begin to see, and that's not to say we all have to be clairvoyant or clairaudient to make progress on the path. What we see and what we experience is determined a lot by our ray makeup and astrological influences, but eventually these symbols, these names, these tabulations, they fade away, and then there's energy. And this is the one of the primary objectives of groups, esoteric Aquarian groups. And to quote the Tibetan, the most advanced revelation that the disciple or the initiate can achieve or come to understand, and this is a direct quote, is that all is energy and it's in motion. Okay, excellent. Any additional comments?
We have several hands, so go ahead, Joel.
I guess we were thinking about similar things, Duane. I think I have an example that maybe you've already done it, but here we go. I became aware the other day, I was thinking about Venus, and it bothers me that a friend of mine who always defines Venus as having to do with romantic love and never looks at it from the standpoint of its mental capabilities. And that took me along the idea that, yes, when I first become aware of Ray 2, and I think this is mainly a theme on rays, but perhaps not. When I first became aware of Ray 2, I would say, oh, by the way, I'm starting from the base of the personality and moving back up, whereas the illustration, I believe, on the screen right now is from the Godhead down. So we're talking about invocation and evocation, but we are talking about a spectrum that begins with a little bit of color and becomes very bright, or maybe the reverse, depending on which direction we're moving. But then when you're looking at Venus, you've got that going on. And then you also have Ray 5, which has to do with mentation. And we're going through this same quality of working with a little understanding of what it means to think, all the way to not having to put any form to it. It just comes. So there's a long spectrum again. So the next step I did, I put the two, thinking then about planets. I said, okay, we could put 2, 5, and 7 together, 3 rays, and we could have each one of them. I think all of us will have each one of those rays on a different spectrum. And eventually they will become so compatible within the individual that they will all blend together at a higher level. I don't know that that could be displayed in the work that you do, but there is my question.
Well, that's excellent. That's more than a question. It's a profound statement. There are relationships between the rays that are obvious, and there are relationships between the rays that might not be so obvious. Now, as an example, you have the masculine descent of the rays, 1, 3, 5, 7, and you have the feminine descent, 2, 4, 6. However, how these two different ray streams interact is through their subplanes. In other words, ray 1 has 7 subplanes. So subplane 2 on ray 1 can communicate with ray 2 on any other level, through any other ray, because that ray 1 with a second ray subplane on the second subplane, it imagine like a fan, it with all these appendages, it moves out, or like an umbrella with all its appendages. And this crossing and crisscrossing is what creates the fabric of existence, or the fabric of manifestation, or what HPB called, I think she said, the trestle board. And this is where Michael Robbins wisely titled some of his books Tapestry of the Gods, because of the interpenetration and the weaving of all these apparent separate ray influences or plane influences, how they come together, how they complement each other, how rays can be antagonistic towards each other when they're not highly developed in the early stages. But as each ray influence becomes familiar to the other ray influence's contribution, it recognizes it needs to work in unison with that other ray to be more complete, to be more whole, to be more vibrant. And that's something I've expressed here infra nauseam about the rays and the planes. And let me give you another example, and then Heidi, I'm going to let you speak. When you look at this opening of a funnel of communication, now this fits in with the 6 stages of building the Antakarana, but as Joe just pointed out, it's sort of incomplete in a way because it's from above down. But the student, the disciple intention, and I'm just generalizing for convenience here, because this is sort of a travesty of the 6 stages of building the Antakarana, but I need to skip through that quickly, excuse me. Intention is you're sort of formulating mentally, you're building your mental energies to do this important, I'll call bridging work. So you have intention, then you have visualization. And so you take mental energy and you infuse it with astral energy, and you give it warmth, you give it vibrancy, intention, visualization, and then projection. And this is what DK says. This is where the new Aquarian teachings are distinguished from the older teachings, because when you get to projection, you use the will aspect of, at first, the personality, and then when the personality will is driven through the power of directed thought, remember, energy follows thought, up into the higher subplanes of the mental, where the soul is found, sharing Buddhai and the will aspect, the 3 aspects of the soul. So what you do is you drive a thread of living light up to the upper triad. First the soul, then the upper triad, the Christ spiritual hierarchy, right up to the heart of the Son of divine love. Now you'll notice when you look at this vortical configuration, it has multiple levels. One is superimposed over the other, because one, as it's developed, interpenetrates another vortex, and then an even higher vortex. Now remember, these vortexes are a part of a sphere, and this is what's lacking in this. In other words, you have an entry and an exit point to a spherical life, and we're just demonstrating sort of the invocation up. So this is what happens when your invocation through these 3 stages of intention, visualization, and projection are sufficiently powerful enough, it creates a vacuum. Now, if all we are is a series of concentric spheres all connected by vortices, when you create a vacuum, what happens? If you create a vacuum with your attention upward, it pulls down higher energy from the next sphere or the next vortex. And that is when you're lifted up. That is what technically is initiation. If you create this vortex inadequately, you can pull energy in, but rather than pulling it down vertically from above down, you can pull from below up and horizontally. And this is where second ray students of the ageless wisdom have to understand how that sometimes when they meditate almost immediately afterwards, that things that are not really all that great can come into your auric field. Other people and their issues and stuff that you wouldn't normally be in touch with, you've created a vortex, and a vortex sucks in. It's kind of like those old-fashioned pumps, if any of you are old enough to remember, where to get suction, to create a suction where you can pull water from a well with a pump, a hand pump, from way, way down, you have to create suction. So you have to seal off by priming it. You put water on top of the pump, it goes down, it seals the pump, so when you crank it, it pulls up. Well, this is sort of like the reverse. When you do an alignment and a meditation with those 3 stages of building the Antakarana, it by law demands recognition. This is not personal recognition like I'm a good guy and I do lots of service, so come to my aid. This is through forgetfulness. And this is why the vacuum is fully created, at least to a soul level, when you begin to integrate on third initiation, because that is when you're leaving all these beautiful thought forms that you've needed and you've creatively used through many, many lifetimes. You're letting go of it. You're not destroying the lower mind. You're creating a vacuum in which the lower mind, to quote the Tibetan, takes its rightful place as a receiver of all these higher energies and a grounding of all these higher energies. Anyway, thank you for, I know I've said this multiple ways in perhaps slightly different ways, but you're looking at something very, very esoteric. And it's not because I was some great artist, it's because what the teachings say.
Duane, I also understand why after meditation you may have very loads and loads of things that are coming through higher on the level of it, intuitions. The rain
Yes,
knowable things, right?
absolutely. Excellent.
Thank you.
Heidi,
Great.
Heidi, thank you, Joe. Heidi, you had your hand up earlier.
Thank you, Duane. And just a couple of things. One, I wanted to thank you for what touches me the most are some of the visual meditations that we have. They actually come to me when I need them. They, to me, are a source of energy, and they influence something that can be occurring in one's life. And instead of doing, old processes, what I call old processes of thinking and having to go, through a thought processing, if there's an awareness and ability to hold those images that you have had us meditate on, we can actually use those in order to open up and clear what needs to be opened and clear in an immediacy of something that might be arising in the energetic awakening of life. And I'll just put it like that. It's really hard for me to put some of these things into words. The second thing that was really, so I wanted to acknowledge how powerful those are and how I'm seem to be using them, or how they're being used in my life, in the life stream. The other thing is this understanding of telepathic language, for me, has to do with this communication of light and its ability to bring forth pure, creative processes without the accumulation of the past through the thinking process. And of course, if you haven't had that in your past lives and you don't, and it's something that you're developing, then you're still using that. But if somebody has developed sufficiently, the communication then becomes direct. And that direct communication becomes actually direct through a group process. And it affects and inputs into the group at exactly the places where it's needed for the group to operate as a transformer in life. And for me, it's much less of this personal stuff, but actually working with, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, the next Buddha is a Sangha. So it's actually the awareness of this next Aquarian age, which has to do with group process, group synthesis, group recognition, and the recognition of the individuation within that dynamic patterning that is evolving life, or life is evolving through us, however you want to look at it. But the group process becomes, to me, a paramount process now, because as life, as things get more, as one recognizes life and it's all of the complexities within the natural world, that the way one needs to work is through a group process, because, and that's where AI comes in, and the usage of that Indra's net, or however you want to put it, becomes really important, because it actually creates a center for those complexities that are actually requesting transformation. And to me, life is asking for transformation, and it has to go through the way the human has developed over time with the planetary being. So all of those incredibly to me, it's our divine inheritance, begins to be recognized through these group processes. In other words, the divine begins to recognize itself more fully. And it's no longer being, I don't mean to use this word, but I'm going to use it, corrupted. It's no longer being corrupted through a self-centered ideation, but a much larger recognition of what the self is. And then that energy becomes grounded and impactful in a very service-oriented way for the wholeness. And when I talked about the wholeness of the Great Bear and the 7 stars, it had to do with, you could say at the very center of your picture there's a dot, a black dot. That black dot is like the pupil of our eyes, which is actually empty, but it reflects energy. When it's aligned with all of those will centers, then it begins to reflect its radiance through the wholeness of life, and it really starts to express that energy of the seventh ray, which is what will formulate life. And it'll make it hard for us to recognize it the way that maybe it's been categorized in the past. But when we work together in these groups, we'll naturally help each other through love.
Excellent. That is beautifully, poetically, and occultly shared. Thank you so much, Heidi. We know that energy follows thought. That's sort of a basic law. I recall the Tibetan indicating that thought forms are more powerful and can be sent out with greater resistance when they're sent on a stream of love. And that's not to say that thought forms can't be confined to the mental plane on very austere levels. But when you can also imbue it with love, it's irresistible. Who would resist the gift of love? And when I was younger, I was always debating my older brothers about the importance of this or that. And we used to get into all kinds of crazy confrontations. But after a while, I realized just send it to them. You don't have to have any recognition. You don't have to be up there in the clouds with all these like 3 scholarly brothers. Just play your little part down here. It'll work out. And you know what? As the years unfolded, the energy that I sent with love had 100 times more effect than anything I could have said merely intellectually. And that's not to say you can't combine the two together, because people, situations, events, often they can be intimidated. They can be intimidated by new thoughts and new ideas. But if you're just casually saying it in the right space, in the right heart-centered space, even if they reject it, it goes with them in their auric field. And later on, when they're down by the beach and everybody's gone and it's really quiet, they can have a revelation. And yes, it's going to be their revelation and they're going to own it. But they may not have any idea the influence of other people, your parents, your partners, your children, all these influences hovering around our aura. And at the right moment, they just drop like gifts from heaven.
I was just going to add that the only other thing is that the higher one goes in understanding,
Yes.
the humbler one must become. And that's the real connection, is through humility, so that the rays can shine forth without distortions. that occur on so many levels and actually have occurred on so many timelines. And that as understanding comes together through these groups, it actually allows humanity as a whole to have that recognition. And as you said, in their own time and in their own development. And I'm not saying that you can't have thoughts, because obviously I must have thoughts, but 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 I but thoughts also can become obstructive energies to the higher planes of knowledge that are wanting to assist humanity's development. And and as our lower mind and our quote unquote, what I call the lower mind thinking, can humble itself, the higher mind naturally will flow forth, because it's part of nature. It's our truest nature. And
Yes,
I had a teacher once said that the only how did he say it? The only true book is the book of nature.
beautiful.
And that takes a long time to understand, the book of nature.
Sure does. I have somebody beating on my door, and I'm going to take a 2-minute hiatus here. And Francis, you're next with your raised hand, so I'll be right back.
We also have a number of comments that we'll get to after Francis is finished. So I'm watching that for all of those of you who've contributed to our chat there.
I apologize for the interruption. We've been waiting 5 years for fiber optics to come into our house, and the man is here, and he's working on it now. So thank you. Francis, you are next.
Yeah, quickly, just wondering what thoughts or impressions you may have had ongoing related to the avatar synthesis, increasing presence of the seventh ray as it relates to so much that we've just been discussing regarding astrological impacts and influences on a personal, a group, national, international basis, and how the avatar may be influencing now and what that evolution may look like going forward. And same as relates to the ray structures for individuals and groups and nations and our global presence. And what we think may be unfolding as we move further into this age of Aquarius with group awareness, consciousness, and so much we've talked about here, communication.
Excellent, Francis. That's wonderful. We've been told that the avatar of synthesis cannot come any lower than the mental plane.
Yeah,
And
as of now, yeah.
as of now, however, the avatar of synthesis has its regents. It has its
Yeah,
uh, intermediaries who step it down. And
right.
that's why DK says there's the greater avatar and then there's lesser avatars. And they perform the same function only on different levels. And that's receiving something from a higher level and then stepping it down to a lower level. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Francis. Any additional comments?
Yes, we actually have quite a few.
Okay.
Earlier, we had a little sidebar about fixed stars. Ishtar says rays can come strongly through the fixed stars in our charts, natal and progressed, and family members have noticed this. She asked, does anyone know what Algol's star ray is? And Walter says, I don't know of any esoteric source which mentions a ray for the star Algol. However, Algol is currently located at 26 Taurus 31, so is conditioned by Taurus, which is ray 4. And then I have a compilation on a whole bunch of fixed stars. And so I added in there information that I have from that. Algol is the beta star in Perseus. It's the head of Medusa, also the head of the serpent or the demon star. It is said to be Saturnian and Martian in nature, and it is considered the most violent and unfortunate, dangerous star in heavens, said to foreshadow violent death. But then again, according to Solar Fire, that is not supported in working with Algol in many charts. And of course, as an astrologer, everything has its low points, it has its bad points, and it has its good points and a higher purpose. We know that with both Saturn and we know that with Mars, and it would be the same with the fixed stars as well. Okay. Solar Fire goes on to tell us that according to the Greeks, or maybe this was in my little fixed star book, I don't remember my source at this point, but according to the Greeks, the star is the severed head of Medusa and is used by Perseus to save Andromeda as well as his mother. So Algol is all the passion and the intensity of the feminine, which can be used effectively or destructively. So that was our little sidebar on um, Algol. Heliosil says Algol feels familiar and maybe the Andromeda galaxy was saved once upon a time. Well, surely in mythology, Andromeda herself was. Um, and Ishtar says, yes, I've read that about Algol, but according to the many family members, I have seen this within their chart. They've used this energy for good. Yes, yes, it can do that. It becomes power to endure and transform very difficult challenges and become very lovingly wise. And then there's others, gang members with Leo, with Algol, uh, chart and Capricorn ascendant has great challenges ahead for him as his father is trying to influence him in the gang lifestyle. I walk with him into darkness to hold the light. So, um, uh, so I think
Excellent.
that was everything on Algol, but oh no, I don't know of any esoteric socialist mentions report. Oh, that was a repeat of what Walter said. So anyway, the fixed stars are very important in our chart. And for those of you who don't know it, it's an added layer. I mean, it can take us forever just to understand the things that we normally look at in a chart, but the dimensions that we can get by looking at these fixed stars, and they all have positions. They're considered fixed stars because they seem to us that they don't move very much, but they actually do move. And you can go back and look in your birth chart and see where the position was, or you can look today, as Walter did, and see where the position is and where it impacts your chart. So anyway, that was our little sidebar on
Excellent.
all,
Thank you so
all
much,
gold.
BL. Rose,
Um,
I see your hand raised.
Yes,
go
I
ahead,
could,
Rose.
with this amount of stars and constellations, as we know now, there are literally like billions of stars, and the ones that we see with our naked eye, for the most part, are the ones that are in our local Milky Way, our local galaxy. What effect does all these other stars or all the, there's literally billions of stars. So is the effect, are we influenced by it once we have some sort of connection with it, or once we are aware of it? Or what's kind of your thoughts on that?
That is a
My
great question. Go ahead, BL.
I just want to say my thoughts would be how it impacts our chart. Okay, our chart is our basic energy pattern. It's not just one energy, it's all those flowing energies. And I mean, I think of this with the full moons, and I think of this with other phenomena that we see in our local stars. Um, it's how it impacts, how it relates to things in your chart. And that means understanding the position of the fixed stars and where that falls within both our natal chart and our, progressed or solar arc chart. I think, and this is just my personal opinion as an astrologer, it has to have a point of focus there within your chart for it to relate to you. Okay. But overall, what is it? Our sun is one of seven suns. It's a chakra in another constellation, and that's in a bigger constellation. And we're all related in so many different ways. But I think you have to find some kind of a connection there.
Excellent. Thank you.
We have a couple more comments here.
Good.
Ishtar says, so well explained, Duane, on how those vortex energies go multiple directions. She says it's very helpful. And what a wonderful way to explain God's love for one another in that subtle etheric auric communication.
Thank you, Ishtar. That's beautifully shared.
Luis says these groups offer a unique process and opportunity to work as a group, tapping into archetypal patterns. I would like to see each group experience close with an invocation or short meditation as a way to seal the work.
Excellent. We planned on doing that. And the meditation is a short one, but it's by Michael Robbins for the Leo full moon of many moons past, but very relevant to our discussion and where we are at. Okay, any additional comments?
Just one more. Joe says Algol fascinates me as my natal Chiron is located 1 degree from that degree. Perhaps that explains why one would be so defensive of the defined feminine. So see, that's a connection within our chart. That's what I'm talking about.
Excellent.
And with fixed stars, I would say 1 degree is maybe a little wide. You want it to be more precise. But I would venture to say that what Walter gave us was the current position of Al Gore. And if you looked at your natal chart, you would find it much closer to your natal Chiron. But that's just me.
Excellent.
Well, maybe it would be a good time to do that closing meditation then, Duane.
Yes. Is Michael Stacy still with us?
Mhm.
Yes, I am.
Would you like to lead the meditation? And I have it right here to share with you, assuming I can find my keyboard. Okay, can you read that, Michael? Is that clear enough?
Yes. The orange roaring light of Leo. Let the lion of God consume the lion of the personality. Let us begin with alignment. And so we withdraw from the personality, and from that withdrawal, align with the soul and identify as soul. And imaginatively merge with the group soul. Let us unite in soul with the spiritually minded people of the world and with men and women of goodwill. And now visualize the group soul merging into the one soul of humanity. Realize that there is no my soul and thy soul. Deeply realize naught is but me. See the group align with the higher worlds of wisdom. In the presence of this great light, feel the presence of the great white brotherhood, the Lodge of Masters, the spiritual hierarchy of our planets. Inwardly and with heartfelt gratitude, offer your salutations to the masters and to the head of the hierarchy, the Christ. Raise your thought to Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. And with deepest reverence and in all humility, attune with the presence of Sanat Kumara, standing at the center of Shambhala. May the energy of our divine self inspire us, and the light of our soul direct. May, me be, may we be led from darkness to light, from the unreal to the real, from death to immortality, from chaos to beauty, from the individual to the universal, from God immanent to God transcendent. And sound a long, silent Om as you imagine the group imbued with his energy. The long, silent Om is sounded by the voice of the silence.
Excellent, Michael. Thank you.
part of that reminds me of the Dyna 2 and or Dyna 1 and Dyna 2 meditations, where you do them with the group. And then,
Yes.
the energy of the divine self inspire and the light of the soul direct. Then the darkness to light, the unreal to the real, the death. Those are the formulas.
Yes. Beautiful meditation. Well, we appreciate you taking time to send your loving energy and your thoughts, reflections. And let us close with a quote from the great Persian poet Rumi, who said, "Gamble everything for love." Any updates, BL or Michael, we need, or are we good? Are we going to be back on our Saturdays? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's like Jessica said right away in the beginning. It only changed because Sirius
Okay,
Festival. So we'll be back second Saturday
awesome.
Right,
from now.
right.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everybody. I'll get this posted later today.
Love you.
Love everybody.
Love you all.
Big love.